Today, I have received an excellent question that I'm going to start off with, and that is, what about should I serve meals family style? And I'm live on a couple of different platforms, so stick around. I'm looking in different directions, but you can submit questions to me to answer, and I'll answer them live. All right, so the question about family style. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer here, and it will depend on your child. And there are clients that I have worked with where I strongly encourage family style, and then there are other families that I work with, and then there are other families that I work with where I still encourage pre-plating. It varies depending on a couple of things. The first thing is whether or not how old your child is actually is the first thing. If your child is like 6 months old, 12 months old, I would continue to do the pre-plating. And I do a mix of this with my children as well. And my children are 4 and 6. And initially I started pre-plating for them since they were very little. And as they've gotten older, it's become a better thing for them to help plate for themselves. However, my children are not my clients' children. And so everybody's child starts in a different place. I just started my small coaching group last week with some of the mums in there, and most of them, I have one 6-year-old, and most of the rest of the group are really young. They're between 2 and 3. So there's also a time and a place for pre-plating food. And I will give you the example for my daughters where I pre-plate for them. It's not always. Sometimes I'm in a real hurry. I'm a single parent. I don't necessarily have the time if they're really hungry and we've just gotten home and there just isn't the time for them to be incorporated, which I do encourage, of course. I do my best to talk the talk and walk the walk, to encourage the kids a few minutes to be involved with this. That's not always possible because life is life and it's just not always possible. But if there's a food that you don't think that they would put on their plate, again, this depends on the child's age and it also depends on the child's level of pickiness. If they have food anxiety about something, being on their plate, if you give them a plate with that food on there and then they run away from the table, that's not setting your child up for success. So in that situation, definitely not pre-plating. But then there are other situations, and I'll just give you the example of my kid, where I will put a new food on her plate and I will tell her about what it is, and we'll usually have a conversation about it before I put it on the plate so she can see it. I'll invite her to come and have a look if she wants to taste it, because she is not going to yell and scream because she does not have food anxiety. So in this situation, it's okay to pre-plate it and put it there as an option for her. However, if you have a child that has massive food anxiety, first of all, we need to actually work on that, because that's and what I should actually clarify. Food anxiety can manifest in a few different ways. If your child sees their plate and screams and runs off, or they throw their plate, or they pull the food off and throw it off, and they seem quite alarmed that something is on their plate, that is anxiety. And not always, but often it's because the parent has pressured the child to eat in the past. And so I started working with a new client last week, and one of her kids has food anxiety. And she said to me, but I've never done that. I've never pressured them to do those things. So there's overt pressure, which is like, eat your food. You are not allowed to leave the table until you've eaten your food. That's like really overt pressure. But there's other pressures, which I've talked about as well. I've got a video on YouTube about praise. I've talked about praise quite a lot on both Instagram and TikTok, and how praise itself is actually a form of pressure. It's not overt in the sense of it's not abusive. However, if I praise you for doing something, it's external. It's coming from me. It's almost like my love or appreciation of you is conditional on you trying this food. And so children can do that to get this external reward, which is not what we want. We don't want to tie our praise up with our child, whether or not they eat something. And then there are other things, like I've also talked about using the words yummy and yucky. So if you say to your, here's my banana, I need to crochet some new things. They're all at the house that I co-own, that I have not been, no one's given me my crochet things back. So I've got like 3 of them. Here's my banana. And I think I can't remember if I've already posted this video or if it's sitting in my drafts, but I'll give you an example. So I'm eating it, I'm the parent, and you're the child. This banana is so yummy. Oh, it's so yummy. This banana, seriously, is so yummy. Versus, this banana is quite sweet and it's a little starchy. I think it's a little bit underripe. Do you see the difference? It's very different, because yummy is subjective. Yummy itself is a biased word because we mean it to be you'll like it, it's delicious. And saying to a child, you'll like it, try it, is intrusive. And so in the same way, I don't suggest you use the words yummy or yucky. They also don't describe the food. Do you see in the second example where I actually gave words to how it tasted and what the texture was? Those are legitimate ways to explain something. Calling something yummy and yucky doesn't explain it at all. I've talked about this with my kids too, because now that they go to school, they hear yucky a lot. I'm like, what does yucky mean? Seriously, tell me what it means. I have no idea what it means. It doesn't mean anything. All right. There was another question over here that I was going to answer. Any other picky eaters only wanting carbs and dessert? That was the next question I wanted to answer. Double tap the screen if you want me to answer that question. Carbs and desserts, like obsessions with desserts. Oh, somebody's asking for clarification on pre-plating. That means here's your child's plate, and I'm going to put the food on it. If you're on TikTok, that's pre-plated. If you're on Instagram, you can't see it. I've got an image in the back here. That's pre-plated. So I've put the foods on the plate for my kid, and then I'm putting it on the table. So I've done the plating. Okay, there were lots of taps about the carbs question, so let's get into it. And feel free, I'm scrolling down to the newest comments right now. Can you please use more descriptive words, more descriptive text so I know? Yeah, go and have a look at my playlists of phrases on TikTok. Playlist of phrases. There's a ton of my videos that have different descriptive words on the screen. I promise they're not hard. You have them in here, you just haven't thought about them. Okay, so question about picky eater mostly eating carbs and desserts. Let's tackle the desserts first. Picky eaters tend to also be fixated on desserts. Why? Because desserts are really easy to like. Sweet things are really easy to like. We have a preference naturally for sweet things. So that's normal. When I say it's normal, I mean that's normal human behavior. It's not normal in the sense that that's what children should always be gravitating towards and always wanting. So if your child is picky, and I would say 75% of the time, I have picky eaters in my practice or when I'm talking to mums, they will say that their child is fixated on sweets. So you've actually got to work on both of these problems together. So the fixation is one problem, but the fixation is a symptom of the bigger problem, which is the picky eating. If we can sort out the picky eating, and by sort out, I mean start working on it, on the picky eating, that's how we're going to be able to broaden their types of foods that they're eating, which will bring the fixations on sweets down. So I do have a course bundle, Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, which is my picky eater course. That's my best-selling course. And you can bundle that with my other online course, which is Stress-Free Sweets and Eats. And if you bundle them together, you save a little bit of money. You have access to the courses once you've bought them. You can go back as much as you want and watch them again and again. There's a lot of mindset work in here as well for you as the parent, because I often see that there's usually one parent that is hesitant to put dessert on the plate, which if you're not doing that already, go and have a look at my sweets videos. If you're on TikTok, the sweets playlist, there's a lot. And there's also a bunch on my YouTube channel, which is Family Snack Nutritionist. There's always usually one parent that is hesitant to put desserts on the plate. When you put desserts on the plate, you start to normalize them as just being another food. You take them off a pedestal, you make them less excited, you make them less wanted. That's the first thing. And if you're saying, oh, my child's only going to eat dessert, great. Go watch the video on my YouTube channel. It's a tutorial about what to do when they ask for more dessert. And if you want like the full framework, go and grab the course bundle of Stress-Free Sweets and Eats and Mealtimes Without Meltdowns. It has all the tools to really get you started and to get you feeling confident in what you are doing at mealtimes. The carbs question is next. So with the carbs question, carbs give us energy. There's nothing inherently wrong with carbs. What I would suggest that you do, and look, this is again, contextually, I don't know what carby foods you're giving your child or which ones your child is eating. What I often see is, there's nothing wrong with carbs. I'll always opt when you can for whole grain options of things, bread, crackers, pasta, rice, like go brown if you can, or like do a mix of white and brown for starters, because the brown stuff, the whole grain stuff has fiber in it. which is good for their bowels. It's just important for like life. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I did a video about this a little while ago, was about giving pasta and rice plain and why I would not do it. And it's basically because those are, again, the easy things to like. And once you go down this trap of, okay, I'm serving the sauce separately from the pasta, the child is not going to eat the sauce. Once you go down that, it's a really slippery slope to getting them back. Trust me, I've worked with 7 and 8 year olds that started off only eating it plain, and now they are accepting sauce on it. It takes time. You can do it. You need a strategy on how to do it so you don't make the child anxious, because this boy that I was working with recently was like caused him anxiety. So we can't just like do it. But if you've got a young child and you're just getting started, don't go down the road of giving plain rice or pasta. Don't do it. It's a trap. So we shouldn't pre-plate. Oh, back to pre-plating, 6-year-old. Let her plate it. Yeah, the alternative is letting her plate it herself, serve it family style. That's the alternative. Can you please share some suggestions how to approach the situation when they refuse to eat new food that is introduced? Do I offer things I know they will eat? No. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Also, on Instagram, if you have questions, can you put them in the little circle with the question mark? Because that way I can click on them. Otherwise, they get lost when people join the live. So yes and no is the answer. You need to serve a respectful plate. I've talked about this before. I do this a lot in the courses and with my one-on-one clients. The brief version is there needs to be at least one reliable food, depending on your child, again, age and how picky they are. And if there's anxiety, you may need more than one reliable food. So if you just give them a plate of new things, you're setting everybody up to fail. And you're going to have a hungry child that doesn't eat. You're going to be stressed out because they're not eating. You're going to be annoyed because you've cooked all this food that they're not eating, and you're going to be worried and frustrated because they're not eating. It just is a recipe for disaster for everybody. So we never want to starve a child, ever, period, full stop. I don't care if your doctor told you to do it. I don't care. Like, generally speaking, no healthy child will self-starve, but I promise you I've worked with children that really will not eat. And we don't want to set that up as a battle because, again, everybody is going to fucking fail. Excuse my language. So it's okay to put a new food on the plate or have, let's say you're making a new recipe. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Last night, we went out for dinner to a friend's house, my kids and I, and we made a honey cake. And my kids were so excited to eat it, and they had asked me, are we going to have it at the meal? So this kind of goes back to the carbs question. They had asked, my older one who's 6 asked me, are we going to be able to have it at the meal? Because she knows at home we always eat it together. But if we go out, sometimes, not everybody does it that way. And I said, you know what? The family we're going to also has a child. They're both their parents. And I'm sure if we ask them, they will probably say it's okay. And if they don't, you just know that you'll probably be full by the time the cake comes out. And if you only have a little taste of it, we'll take the rest of the cake home, and I promise you'll be able to have some tomorrow. So I want them to know I can't control whether or not they'll be okay with putting the dessert on the table at the same time, which they were. And so I implore you, if you can, if you're in the situation, to ask if that's okay. They were fine with it. And honestly, my daughters actually only ate one piece of cake. My second one had a little bit more. But I was surprised. They both went back and forth, it doesn't surprise me at home, but it surprises me when I'm out because they know I allow them to have more. And I was kind of expecting them to want more, but they didn't. Anyway, so we went out for dinner, and this family had cooked for us like 3 different dishes of foods that they had not had before. There was chicken in there, which obviously they've had chicken before, but it was cooked in a new way. It had like rice and lentils and like pomegranates and all kinds of like different things. I've never made a dish like that before. So those were new foods. And there was also like potatoes, which they had eaten. Of course, they've eaten potatoes before. They were cooked, baked in the oven, and they had like different things roasted in there with them, which was different, not entirely new, but different. And then there was another dish, but I'm not going to go into that one. Those were like the main things. And so I asked them, I did the plating for them, but I asked them like, let's get a bit of this, let's get a bit of this. And again, my kids don't have food anxiety. It's different. And there was a food, I didn't actually ask them, would you like that chicken dish? Because it was like the chicken was shredded on the top, and then there were the lentils and everything, and it was quite brown. And it's not like, brown things are not necessarily the most appetizing to eat, but it was delicious. And I didn't ask them if they wanted that. I just said, would you like a lot or a little bit to start? Knowing they would say a little bit, which is totally fine. That's what I would want to give them anyway. Excuse me. So that we don't waste the food. If I give them a large amount and they don't eat it, well, first of all, it's overwhelming. Second of all, food waste. Third of all, I'm going to be the one that probably ends up eating it. So I just gave them a little bit, but I didn't ask them. If you've got a child with food anxiety, it's a different story. Okay. I hope that answered the question. Oh, the question was about introducing a new food. So always make sure that the plate is a respectful plate to start off with, because that sets everybody up for success, and giving them some options, again, depending on the age of your child and what the food is and stuff like that. But don't make an alternative meal, no. That was the question. Gee, I'm so proud of myself for remembering that. Okay. A 14-month-old eats everything, which is great, but what quantity of foods should she be eating? In the mealtime rolls, if you haven't watched any of my videos about the mealtime rolls, please go on my YouTube channel. It's one of the top 5 videos. You'll see it there when you go to my YouTube channel, Family Snack Nutritionist. It says it's the mealtime rolls video. Go and watch it, please, because there's no amount that your child should or shouldn't eat. Children's appetites, just like our appetites, fluctuate day to day, meal to meal. There is no prescribed amount that a child should eat. Okay, so there was a quick question about food anxiety. I did answer that earlier on, so this is being recorded and streamed on YouTube, so you can watch the beginning of it on there. But basically, it can manifest in different ways. If you put a food on a child's plate and they run off screaming, or they yell and scream that they don't want it, that's a level of food anxiety. Another level would be if they're like gagging when you're trying to feed them something. And it's usually, not always, but usually, most of the time, often, response to parents pressuring children to eat. Which, as you might expect, if you're forced to put something in your mouth, you might be anxious about that too. Yeah, you're welcome. There's a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, like tutorials and coaching videos and stuff. Okay, bear with me for a second. I've got a couple of questions. The 3-year-old who only wants snacks. Are you on a mealtime schedule? My video today on Instagram was about why you need a schedule. And it's not just having the schedule, it's actually about sticking to it. So if you're on Instagram, go check out my stories and the new reel. Plus, there's a video about schedules on my YouTube channel, and and a video specifically about, there's a few videos. If you go to YouTube and Family Snack Nutritionist and just go in the search bar and type in snack, there's like 3 or 4 videos that'll come up about like what snacks to give, with like lots of ideas, how to talk about it, and why children want snacks, and how to get over that, because you absolutely can. I promise you absolutely can. This is like something that we work on in like the first week when we work together, either in group or one-on-one. Okay, I saw on TikTok some questions about talking about 3 and 4-year-old picky eaters. I'll come back to that in just a second. I wanted to first, actually, you know what? Let's do that. Picky 2 and 3-year-olds. If you have a specific question, send it to me, because that's always really helpful for context. The earlier you start, the better. I say this, I think, in every video, every live, every caption. Always, the earlier you start, the better. If you've noticed that it's a problem at 2 and it's been going on for 3 months, something I want you to think about actually is the percentage of time your child has been picky. So if you have a 2-year-old, they're 24 months old. they've only been eating for 18 months of their life because they weren't eating food until they were 6 months old, right? So you've got an 18-month period where the child's been eating. If they've been picky for 6 months, that's 1/3 of their eating life. That is a lot of time. So you may think like, oh, I have to wait longer for it to get better, but the amount of time is increasing and the percentage of their life that they've been picky is increasing. So when I tell you to start early, I really, truly mean it. Chances are the reason parents fall into the trap around like when children are moving from that baby to toddler stage is because we're so used to feeding on demand, and we're so used to like, you never starve a baby. And like, I'm not suggesting you starve a child by any means, but putting them on a schedule, which really should happen around 9 months old. I go into this in my baby course, which is also in my bio. It's called Fuss Free First Foods. If you have a baby and you want to like avoid all of this, you can do that. That online course shows you how to set up responsive feeding so that everybody is on the same page. Whose roles are what at mealtimes. Oh, that's my washing machine. I don't know if you can hear it singing in the background. To set you up for success. If your child is already over 12 months old and they're feeding normally, meaning that they've moved from purees to regular food and whatnot, if the sooner you start, like if you have a 14-month-old who's been picky for a month, you could wait 6 months, and it inevitably probably won't get better, because that's 99% of what I hear from people. Or if you get started now, like, I am going to shamelessly plug my course here, because I know that if you start early and you implement the tips and tools that are in the course to set up responsive feeding, to help you change your language, to modify it so it is even more positive without pressure. And sometimes, like I said earlier in this live, pressure is not always eat your food. Sometimes it's, oh, well done, you tried a bite. Or, oh, it's so yummy, you'll love it. Like, a lot of people don't think of those as pressure, but they are pressure. So the course will help you with both of those things. It'll also help you shift your mindset as to what a win is and how to move your child forward with a lot of activities that will help engage your child so that they are more interested in the food. And the earlier you start doing this, the better. So I'm going to shamelessly plug the course, Mealtimes Without Meltdowns. If your child is also fixated on sweets, bundle the course with the Stress-Free Sweets and Eats course and just get started like today. The courses are really easy to digest. I think the longest video lesson, they're all videos face-to-face like this with me. You can do it in your own time. You can come back to it anytime. The longest lesson is like 8 minutes, because I want you to be able to sit and get through like a module, one video, even if it's 3 or 5 minutes, so that you can start implementing something right away. The course is, if you just buy Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, it's $149 in the US dollars. It's like $3 a lesson. It's like so affordable, and you get access to it. And there's a ton of handouts, printouts that you can stick on your fridge so you can start practicing more positive language, because a lot of what I do with clients is about communication and how to talk to your child. So don't underestimate how important that is. It's not, you can have the strategy of doing family style, but if you're still pressuring your child to eat inadvertently with yummy, yucky, do you like it? Do you not like it? I'll make you something else. Like, if you're still doing all those things, the implementing the tip, I suppose, of family style meals is not going to help you. You need more support than that. Do scheduled meals for toddlers improve or worsen picky eating? You need a schedule. You need a schedule. You must have just joined the live because I talked about this earlier on. Go to my YouTube channel and watch the schedules video. It's one of the top 5 videos. You'll see it right there when you go to Family Snack Nutritionist. And I've also got a schedules like playlist on TikTok. Please go and watch those. You need a schedule and you need to stick to it. All right, I want to shift gears. I got a question here about a 7-year-old. Oh, and a 4-year-old who wants to watch the iPad. Double tap to tell me if anybody else here has kids that will only eat or mostly eat with iPads or like TV distractions. And if you want me to talk about that. Okay, just a few people. All right, let's talk about this 7-year-old. My daughter is 7 and still only eats plain rice and pasta. Okay, first thing I would tell you to do, first thing I tell everybody, especially on these lives, something that you can do right now, be proactive. Write a list of all the foods that your child eats. If that list is 20 or less, or close to 20, if it's 21, it's close to 20, that's very limited, and that's one of the red flags. for quite extreme picky eating, because if children are only eating 10 foods reliably, they're not possibly getting enough nutrients. And then that leads to the next thing, which is your child eating a variety of foods from all the food groups? If the answer is no, that's another massive red flag, because if they're not eating a variety of foods from within all the food groups, there's no way they're meeting their nutrient requirements. They might be meeting their calorie requirements. That in and of itself is not super important. We live, most of us, I'm not sure where everybody lives, but I will say that most of my clients are Australia, New Zealand, North America. We live in a society where we have access to nutritious foods, and our children should be eating those. So with that being said, those are the two things that you can answer right now as to whether or not it's a picky eating is a really big problem. So the 7-year-old, I would want to know what other foods they're eating, because I'm sure it's got to be more than just those two. Are they, when I'm doing an intake with someone, I will have them write a list of foods before we get on our first call. I want to know condiments. I want to know spices that they like. I want to know, obviously, do they eat eggs? How do they eat their eggs? Do they only eat their eggs cooked in a certain way? Do they eat eggs cooked in any way? Because even within that, because I always get asked, somebody will always ask, what does a food on that list of 20, what does that count as? A potato, are fries considered potatoes? Try to get it in their most whole form. If it's anything from the quote unquote junk food category, I would still put it on the list, but I would put it separately in the list. I would be looking at foods in the food groups first, and going from there. If your child eats cake and lollies and things, I would almost kind of just put that all into one food. Because there's some nuance to here. So if you've got a child who eats, that you say they eat eggs, I often have clients that will say eggs. I'm like, okay, do they eat them scrambled? Do they eat them sunny side up? Do they eat them hard boiled, in every way, or only in one way? Because if the child is only eating eggs in one way, it's great that they're eating eggs, but that's something that I would like to work on to increase their flexibility in being able to eat their eggs cooked in multiple different ways. So I hope that answers that question. So the lady with the 7-year-old, send me a DM. We can chat more about this, because I've had in my last small coaching group, I had several kids that were 6, 7, and 8, and they made a lot of progress. A lot of them had a lot of food anxiety, actually, because they had been pressured to eat before. In fact, within this, I think the second week in the group chat, one of the mums of the 6-year-old had said, I didn't realize how much I was pressuring her to eat and how afraid she was to try things or have them on her plate. So that's a pretty big mindset shift and a pretty big, a pretty big realization. But if you don't have those realizations, you can't change them. There's no sense in beating yourself up about it or anything like that. But if you don't know what's happening, you can't change it, right? Whew, that hits close to home with my marriage. What? Okay. Okay, so yes, people wanted me. Yeah, send me a message. I'm glad you're still on the live. Do that. Because you're probably a good candidate for my next small coaching group. Or if actually, this is something I should tell you. This is my last coaching group for the year has started. It started last week. We've had our first call. I'm very excited. I'm not running another one this year just because of timing. I don't want to have to run it over Thanksgiving, and it would have to run over New Year's. It just doesn't make sense to do that. And I'm also I separated from, I left my husband earlier this year, and it's just been a wild ride. And so I'm going to take, I think, the month of December. Can never take it off because I'm the only one that works in the business, but I'm going to take it and have a little bit of time where I'm not quite as crazy busy. But so the exciting part of this was I am going to be opening up my one-on-one coaching again. I have not really been taking new clients except for the occasional person who DMs me and is like, I want to work with you immediately. So if one-on-one coaching is something that you're interested in, you can send me a DM, or you can just go onto my website, which you can do from the link in my bio. Go to the 3 dots in the corner, tap on it, go to work with me. I think it's called work with me or one-on-one coaching or something like that. And you can go and book a discovery call. Please put the time in your calendar. I can't tell you how annoying it is when people book a time and then they don't show up to the time. So you can go and do that. Of course, I would love to meet with you face to face so that we can chat about what's going on. And a discovery call is not a coaching call. We talk on the phone. You tell me about what's going on. We just have a very casual conversation. And if it seems like we're a good fit to work together to solve the problems you're having, we'll talk about what that encompasses to work together and what are the best options. And yeah, we go from there. I'm so proud of myself. This tea is still warm and I'm almost finished it. I know a lot of you are mums, so you know exactly why that's a great thing. Done, finished. Oh, the iPad. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's going to be the question that I end on today. Let me okay. So I'm not going to answer the pocketing food right now. There's a module in Mealtimes Without Meltdowns that talks about pocketing food. But I do want to talk about TV and distractions while eating. A lot of my clients will get on the phone with me and they'll say, oh, but they eat more and they stay at the table longer because they're eating more when they have the distraction of the TV, which is the pull to use TV or iPad or whatever. You want your child to eat. That does not make you a bad parent at all. There's no buts. I'm going to start a new sentence. When your child is watching TV and they are distracted, they are not tuning into their internal hunger cues, meaning, am I getting full yet? Am I satisfied? Am I enjoying this? And you might say, doesn't matter, I just want them to eat. Well, it does matter because in the long term, there's been research to support this, that when we ignore our hunger cues, we eat beyond when we're full, and that continues to signal to the brain that that's how we want to feel all the time when we finish eating, which can lead to overweight and obesity later in life, overeating in life. And also, like, the other thing that I think will resonate more with you than that, because that's very long term. Think about this in the short term, right? Let's say let's say I had a plate of lamb's brains that I was going to feed you for dinner, and I knew you wouldn't like it. So I put on your favorite TV show for you, and I sat there and spoon-fed you these brains. Answer this question in your head, or you can type it in or double tap if it resonates with you. Are you going to learn to like the brains? What if you do like the brains and you keep eating them? What if you don't even taste the brains, but you eat them? Because I'm feeding them to you because you're distracted. You are not going to learn that you actually like the taste of brains. You might initially, if I didn't have the TV there, I picked brains because it's a very out there thing. Some people like brains. There's nothing wrong with brains. But I'm saying for the majority of people, you're probably thinking, ugh, that's disgusting. Exactly. You do think that's disgusting, just like your child might think the chicken is disgusting right now. So if you're sitting there feeding them this thing that they think is disgusting, and they're so distracted they don't even know they're eating it, they're never going to learn that they like it if they're distracted. Do you get what I'm saying? So I hope that resonates with you. I like to use mindset shifts like this when I'm talking to clients and in the courses as well, because those sorts of examples tend to be what resonates with parents. And in the short term, I know everyone's looking for the short-term win. I want my kid to eat more at this meal, so I'm going to distract them with the iPad. Yes, got it. Understood. However, if you do that, you're going to make the problem worse for a longer period of time. You're going to become more reliant on this crutch, and your child is not learning that they enjoy eating that food. They are not being exposed to that food because they don't see it. They're not paying attention to it. They don't get to interact with it. It's just mindlessly being put in their mouth, or they're just mindlessly putting it in their own mouth. They're not learning to like it. So that's truly the problem with it. And when it comes to, so I have some clients right now who have the TV and iPad. This is something that we work on in week 1 to 2 of our group. And then by week 3, there's no iPad. We want to get rid of that pretty quickly. The way we do it, it's not necessarily that it's cold turkey. This again comes back to communication. The way we talk to children is so important when we're implementing something. All right, that was like my last major question. Stephanie, any experience with highly picky, strong-willed autistic children? Yes, I'm actually working with a child right now who is autistic, and I would say that he's highly selective in the sense that he will go for many, many hours without eating if he doesn't like what's on the menu. So, Stephanie, why don't you send me a message? You can now send them over TikTok. I think I'm a little bit behind with answering the TikTok ones, so bear with me. Or better yet, send it on Instagram if you're on Instagram. And we can talk more about that. For that, I would definitely suggest working one-on-one with me, group program for children that are neurodiverse, that are very, very selective. You're going to get much better results working directly one-on-one with me. All right, that's all I have time for today. This has been a great live. Thank you for joining. And if you have more questions or you want to work with me or message on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, and if you are interested in one of my courses, go to the link in my bio. Mealtimes Without Meltdowns is my picky eater course. It's the best-selling one. And if you've got a child that's also obsessed with sweet things, bundle it with the Stress-Free Sweets and Eats course, because you need to work on both issues at the same time. And knowing how to work on both of them at the same time is going to save you a lot of stress in the long term. So thanks for being here. I hope you have if you're on that side of the world, a great Sunday night. If you're on this side of the world, happy Monday to you. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.